Hello and welcome to Skyline, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Driti Atri. Now tonight we begin with a simple question that may sound simple, but it has triggered a massive debate across America. Can one word offend an entire community? Well, California now believes the answer is yes. And then a case that stretches across India, Canada, and the United States. A jailed Indian gangster and international murder investigation. And now, fresh criminal charges from the United States. These are not just headlines. They are the stories that could affect Indians living abroad, families planning to move overseas, and even those watching from India. So let's start with it. Let me ask another question. Can one word create a political storm? Can a school mascot become the biggest issue inside an American state? Now, at first, it may sound unbelievable, right? After all, we are talking about sports teams, sports uniform, in fact, football matches, basketball tournaments, and students cheering for their school. But today, all of that has become a much bigger debate. A debate about history, a debate about identity, and a debate about what should and what should not be acceptable in American politics here. Well, for decades, schools across California proudly use names like Indians, Chiefs, Braves, as their mascots. These names appeared on school buildings, sports jerseys, trophies, or even banners. Generations of students grew up identifying with them. Alumni, they proudly wore the jackets carrying these names years after graduating. Now, for many towns, these mascots, they were not just symbol of sports. They had become part of local history and community identity. And now, California wants to change that. In 2024, their governor, Gavin Newsom, he signed a new law called Assembly Bill 3074. The law says many Native American related names can no longer be used by public schools unless the school receives approval from a federally recognized Native American tribe or operated by one. That means names like Indian, Chiefs, Braves, etc., several others could disappear from schools across the state. Now, here's why the debate becomes even more interesting. Supporters of the law say that these names should never have been used in the first place. According to them, Native American communities should not be reduced to sports mascots. They argue that these names encourage outdated stereotypes and fail to respect indigenous history and their culture. But let's flip the script here. Critics are asking a completely different question. If the word Indian is so offensive, then why does the US government still have an agency called the Bureau of Indian Affairs? Why do some Native American communities still proudly describe themselves as American Indians? And if different Native American tribes have different opinion, who gets to decide which opinion is right? Well, that is exactly why the issue has become such a big one. Well, some schools are now trying to save their historic names by reaching out directly to Native American tribe and asking for written approval. Others are preparing to change names that have kind of existed for decades now. Can you imagine studying at a school your parents attended, your grandparents attended, a school known by one name for 50 or 60 years? Suddenly, everything changes. The logo changes, the uniforms changes, the trophy change, even the identity of the school, it changes. This is happening because America is going through a large cultural debate. Should history always be preserved, or should old traditions change with modern values? There's no simple answer. Some people believe changing these names, it's a sign of progress. Others believe that history should be remembered and not erased. But one thing is definitely clear here, this is no longer a debate about sports. It is now a debate about culture, history, identity, and how America chooses to remember its past. And yes, while California is debating the word Indian, another story involving an Indian name has reached American courtrooms. And this time, it has nothing to do with culture. It is about organized crimes, murder, and an investigation that could stretch across 3 countries. Can you imagine this? One murder, 3 countries, multiple intelligence agencies, and a criminal investigation that has now become an international story. Now, this is no longer just about India or Canada or maybe America. It is now about organized crime across the border. The United States has now formally charged jailed Indian gangster Lawrence Bishnoi and his close associate Goldy Brar in connection with 2023 killing of Khalistani separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Canada. In fact, according to the US investigator, the alleged conspiracy was carried out through Lawrence Bishnoi crime network. Investigators believe instructions continue to be passed through the network despite Bishnoi being in an Indian prison. That's kind of tricky though. In the meantime, Goldy Brar is accused of helping coordinate operations in North America. However, wait, American prosecutors have made one thing very clear, that they have not accused the Indian government of any sort of involvement in the killing. The killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, it had already created serious tension between India and Canada. In fact, the Canadian government had earlier said it was investigating possible links involving Indian agents. India, though, strongly rejected those accusations, and now America has entered the picture but with a different approach. Well, the US is treating this case as an organized crime investigation, not as a case involving the Indian government. And that difference, that is exactly and extremely important. According to the US authorities, this investigation is part of a much larger operation targeting criminal organizations involved in extortion, trafficking, any sort of crime, and international criminal network. Officials say that dozens of people connected to organized crimes have already been charged as part of a broader investigation. And this shows how crime has changed. Years ago, criminal gangs usually operated inside one country, but today they communicate across continents. Money moves through international networks. Instruction travel digitally. Operations are planned across multiple countries, and because crimes has become global, law enforcement has also become global. And yes, police agencies, and that too from different nations, are regularly sharing intelligence, they are sharing evidence, information, and that is exactly what we are seeing right now. Now, talking about the Lawrence Bishnoi network, then it has already appeared in several major criminal investigations. And now, with American prosecutors officially filing charges, international attention on the case has become even stronger. The legal battle, it is still far from over. Investigations will continue, court proceeding will continue, and more details could emerge in coming months. But yes, one thing has already become clear. In today's world, crimes do not recognize border, and neither do the investigation trying to stop it. As I said, from an international investigation, we now move to a heartbreaking case involving an Indian family in the US. A story that began as a 911 emergency call but soon turned into a murder investigation. Well, every year, thousands of Indians move to the US with dreams of building a better future. They work hard, they buy homes, raise their families, and start new lives. Most of these stories are inspiring, but sometimes one tragic incident, it shocks an entire community. And that's exactly what has happened in Washington state. Ladies and gentlemen, an Indian origin software engineer from Telangana has been accused of hurting his wife inside their apartment, and unfortunately, the wife, she couldn't survive. According to investigators, everything began with a 911 emergency call. The husband reportedly told emergency responders that his wife had become unconscious. When police officers and medical team researched the whole apartment, doctors declared the woman was no more. At first, it appeared like a medical emergency, but as investigators started examining the evidence, the case took a completely different direction. Well, the medical examiner later concluded that the woman passed away due to strangulation. That finding, it changed everything. What initially looked like a natural or maybe accidental one, it quickly became a homicide investigation. From that moment, investigators began rebuilding the final hours of the victim's life. Police examined the phone records, they checked the electronic devices, they reviewed the apartment entry logs. In fact, they collected surveillance footage. Every small detail, it became important because investigators wanted to understand exactly what had happened inside that apartment. According to investigators, there was no such evidence that an unknown person had entered the apartment during the relevant period. Detectives also alleged that the accused had been communicating with another woman in India. Officials say that digital evidence recovered from electronic devices has become an important part of this investigation. Now, think about how criminal investigations have changed over the past years. In the past, police depended heavily on eyewitnesses. Today, technology has become one of the strongest witnesses. A mobile phone can reveal conversation, a smartwatch, it can record activity. Security cameras can track movement, electronic access record, it can show who entered a building. Digital messages can help investigators build an entire timeline. Modern investigations are no longer solved by one clue. They are solved by connecting hundreds of digital pieces all together. But yes, behind every investigation, there is also a grieving family. A young woman has lost her life, parents have lost their daughter, friends have lost somebody that they loved, and family that once dreamt about a happy future is now waiting for answers. And yes, as the investigation continues, more evidence may emerge. But for now, one thing is definitely clear. A call for medical help, it has become a most shocking criminal investigation involving an Indian family in America. And yes, hopping on to our segment 4, while one Indian family in America is going through a painful legal battle, millions of Indians living overseas, they have now received some welcome news from New Delhi. India has launched a new digital system that promises to make life much easier for OCI cardholders around the globe. Well, for millions of Indians living abroad, paperwork has always been one of the biggest headaches. Whether it is updating your personal details, renewing your documents, or maybe applying for an OCI services, many people have spent weeks filling out forms, collecting documents, and waiting for approval. For families living thousands of kilometers away from India, even a simple application, it can become a long and frustrating process. And now India is trying to change that. That's right. The Indian government has launched the new Electronic Overseas Citizen of India, or we can also call it EOCI platform. The idea is simple. Make the entire process faster, easier, and almost completely digital. Now, under the new system, applicants can fill out forms online, update documents, track the status of their application, and even download their approved EOCI card. A physical visit will now be only needed in special cases with additional verification. And now, think why this matters. Today, millions of people of Indian origin live across the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, and many other countries. Many travel to India regularly for their family functions, business meetings, religious visits, or medical reasons. Every time, paperwork becomes simpler. Life becomes easier for these families. Instead of spending hours standing in queues, instead of mailing physical documents, instead of making repeated visits to government offices, most of the process, it can now be completed from home. In fact, the government also says the new platform will improve security, reduce fraud applications, and make the verification process much more efficient for them. This is another example how technology is changing government services. Banking has become digital, payment have become digital, shopping has become digital, and now OCI service, it is also becoming digital. Now, for the overseas Indians, this is much more than a technology upgrade, right? It means less paperwork, less waiting, less stress, and more convenience for them. Sometimes the biggest relief does not come through a major political decision. Sometimes it comes through making everyday life a little bit easier. And yes, while India is making life easier for overseas Indians, American investigators are focusing on a man that they describe as one of the country's most wanted fugitives. The FBI has now intensified its hunt for Goldy Brar. The Punjabi name Goldy Brar, it has been making headlines for years now. And now, the United States has stepped up its efforts to find him. The FBI has announced a reward of up to $50,000 for any sort of information leading to the arrest of Satinderjeet Singh, better known as Goldy Brar. According to the US investigators, ladies and gentlemen, Brar is believed to be a senior member of Lawrence Bishnoi organized crime network. Authorities accuse the network of involvement in serious crimes including extortion, trafficking, or any weapon-related offenses, and that too across multiple countries. Now, for a second, think about how organized crime works today. This is not like old days. Criminal networks, they no longer operate inside one city or any one country. A plan could be made in one country, money can be collected in another, Instructions can be sent from elsewhere, and the crime itself, it can happen thousands of kilometers away. And that is why agencies like FBI are working more closely than ever before with police forces around the globe. Intelligence is being shared, information is exchanged. Investigations are no longer limited by national borders. Well, the reward announced by the FBI, it is not just about catching an individual. It's also a message that governments are becoming far more aggressive in dealing with international organized crime. Shamefully, he's from India, but no matter where criminal network do operate, officials are trying to follow them. No matter how many countries are involved, and in this case there are three: US, Canada and India. Law enforcement agencies, they are now working together. Whether this reward eventually leads to Goldy Brar's arrest, that remains to be seen though, but one thing is already clear here. International cooperation against organized crime, it is becoming stronger every year. And for criminal investigations operating across border, the pressure is only increasing. Now, from international crime, let's move on to something that affects millions of ordinary people every single day. Rising prices have become one of America's biggest concerns now. And now, Walmart says it wants to give families some much more needed relief here. Let's move on to something that affects millions of ordinary Americans every single day. Rising prices have become one of America's biggest concerns. Now, Walmart says it wants to give families some much needed relief here. Well, for millions of Americans, the biggest challenge today, it's not politics. It is not foreign policy. It is something much more personal for them. There are just 4 words: the cost of living. Every trip to the supermarket, it feels more expensive. Groceries cost more. Clothes cost more. Household essentials cost more. So for many families, every dollar, it matters. People are comparing prices before buying everyday product. Many are cutting unnecessary spending. Others are waiting for any sort of discount before making even a single purchase. And that is why Walmart's latest announcement, it has attracted attention across the United States. America's largest retailer has announced price cuts on a wide range of products. The discount includes beverages, summer clothing, toys, swimming pool, grill, and several food items. According to company officials, the goal is to help consumers save money at a time when inflation continues to put pressure on household budget. Industry experts also believe that other retailers may introduce similar discounts to remain competitive. Now think why this matters. When the biggest retailer in America changes its prices, the entire market watches. Competitors often respond with their own discounts. Consumers become more confident about spending, and even small savings can make a big difference for families managing monthly budgets. For Indians living in the US, this whole news, it is equally important. Many families already spend a large part of their income on rent, insurance, education, healthcare, and transportation. Saving money on groceries and everyday household products, it may not sound like a huge change, but over an entire month or an entire year, those savings, it can add up. Now here, economists continue to describe inflation as one of the biggest challenges facing the American economy. Businesses are trying to attract consumers without hurting profit. Consumers are looking for better value whenever they can find. One thing is certain here: the cost of living, that remains one of the biggest concerns for millions of people across America. And every country now is trying to find its own way to help consumers while staying competitive. And yes, while American families are looking for some sort of relief from rising prices, thousands of Indian students are worrying about something completely different. They're asking one important question: will I get my US student visa in time or not? Now, for thousands of Indian students studying in the United States, it's more like just an educational opportunity. It's more than that. It's a dream for them. A dream built over years of hard work, months of university applications, English language tests, student loan, family saving, and endless preparation. But today many students are facing one major concern: visa appointment. Reports of delay in visa interviews have created anxiety among students preparing to begin the next academic session in the US. Many are worried that delays could affect their travel plans and university admission. And now the US Embassy in India has finally responded. According to a spokesperson, the United States remain committed to processing visa applications according to established rules and guidelines. The embassy says that eligible students will continue to receive visas, while every application will be examined individually, with national security remaining an important priority. Applicants have also been advised to regularly check the official website of the US Department of State and the relevant US Embassy or consulate for the latest upgrade on interview wait time and visa procedure. But this story does not end with student visa. There is another major development that could affect millions of Indians living in the United States. The Trump administration has proposed a broad immigration agenda that could reshape the H-1B visa program, employment-based green card, international student visa, work authorization rule, and maybe employer compliance standards. Now, these proposals have appeared in the latest regulatory agenda issued by the Departments of Homeland Security, Land and State. However, it's very important to remember that these proposals are not yet law. They must first go through the final rule-making process before they could take the effect. Now think why Indians are watching this very closely. Indian nationals receive the largest share of H-1B visas issued every single year. They are also among the biggest recipients of employment-based green card. According to the latest Open Door report, nearly 3.6 lakh Indian students were studying in the United States during the academic year 2024-25, making Indians one of the largest international student communities in America. The proposed changes could also affect Indian technology companies that send skilled professionals to the United States using H-1B visas. New proposals may tighten eligibility under the annual H-1B cap, increase scrutiny for the employers, and introduce stricter rules for companies placing H-1B employees at third-party client location. Many Indian IT companies could be closely affected if these proposals eventually become law. For now, nothing has changed though. Students should not panic. Professionals should not assume the rules have already been implemented. These are proposals, not final law, but they do provide an important glimpse into the direction of America's immigration policy under the current administration. Well, for Indians planning to study, work, or settle in the US, the coming months will be examined very, very closely. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's Skyline, ladies and gentlemen. From California's debate over the word Indians to international crime investigations, from a tragic case involving an Indian origin family to India's new digital relief for OCI card holders, from FBI's hunt for Goldy Brar to Walmart's battle against inflation, and finally, the future of student visas and H-1B rules. Well, today's stories remind us one important truth that the lives of Indians are becoming more global than ever before. A decision made in California, a courtroom in Washington state, a policy announced in New Delhi, or a visa rule discussed in Washington, it can directly affect Indian families across the globe. And that is why we will continue bringing you the stories that matters the most, and that too in a simple way, with facts that help you understand not just what happened, but why it matters. Well, I'm Driti Atri. Thank you for watching Skyline. I'll see you soon with another edition of Skyline. Until then, take care, stay informed, and keep watching TimesXP.